Hi guys, it's Izzy, and yes, I have had a haircut this morning. Don't know what this curl's doing. It's doing its own thing back there, but yeah, I wanted to chop all my hair off basically because it was getting long and annoying. If you have curly hair and you have long curly hair, like, shout out to you because it's a nightmare and I hated it, so I chopped it off. And also it's rare that I'm well enough to have a haircut, so I figured if I just chopped it all off then I wouldn't need a haircut for a while. So wow, hacking the system. It's pitch dark because it's January and I live in England, so that's fun. But after all that preamble about the fact that I've had my haircut, I'm feeling really free. We are doing a 2019 stats video. Because I like stats videos. I don't know if other people do. We'll see by how many people watch this video. But I thought I would do it even though we're almost at the end of January and I don't know if anyone watches these. But you know what? Create the content you want to watch. That's what I say. So yeah, I'll be looking down at my laptop, but I'll put the stats on the screen so it's easier for us to view together. I did make some pie charts, not gonna lie, very pleased. I love a pie chart. Don't get an excuse to make a pie chart often, so when I do, I go for it. Why is the Goodreads website literally the slowest website in existence? So in 2019, I read 182 books. For some reason on here it says 181, but it was 182. Don't know why. Not sure how, to be honest. Not sure how I had the time or the energy to read 182 books, but I did it. Feel great about it. Last year, well, not last year, in 2018 I read I think 112 books, which was like a real achievement for me, and I didn't think I could beat it. I thought I could maybe reach like 120, and I surpassed that quite a bit to 182. So that was exciting. Let's have a look at the stats. I read in total 67,000 pages, 67,165 pages if you want to be exact about it. That seems like a lot of pages. 67,000, big number guys. And my shortest book I read was Opal by Maggie Stiefvater, which was 38 pages because it's just like a novella that happens after the Raven Cycle series. And yeah, I just listened to the audiobook of it because it was like an hour and I wanted that Adam and Ronan content and I got it. It was great. It was a 5-star book. 38 pages is all it takes to get a 5-star out of me. And the longest book I read was City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare at 725 pages. Ironically, one of my least favourite books. So, you know, length and non-length doesn't mean anything. My shortest book was a 5-star and my longest book was, I think it was a 1-star, might have been a 2-star. Don't remember how generous I was feeling. My average length was 371 pages, which I'm pretty pleased with. That makes sense. I'm glad it's not lower than that because I don't know, that just seems like a normal amount of pages for a book. Like that seems like an average book length. So I think I kind of like evened out with like the super long books I read with the like shorter books I read, so I'm pleased with that page average. The most popular book I read was Little Women, which 1.4 million people also read. Shout out to you because Little Women was peak content. It was one of my favourite classics. It is one of my favourite classics now. I read it in December and it was a real win for classics because usually I'm just realising that now with my hair you can see my stupid headrest all the time. Before, my nice curly hair just blocked the ugly headrest, but now I just need to lean this way. And my least popular book was Paddington Races Ahead, by Michael Bond, which only 380 people read. You're missing out, people. Paddington is the purest, most comforting books ever. They're about a bear called Paddington who moves from Peru to London. No one cares that he's a bear It's just accepted. He's just a bear that lives in London with the Brown family and gets into a lot of antics. I'm sorry, what can be more pure than that? Nothing. Read Paddington. It's quality content. My average rating for 2019 was 3.7, which I'm pretty pleased with actually, because I think in 2018 it was like 3.4 and I thought that was a bit sad. So 3.7 seems good. That means I actually chose books that I wanted to read and would enjoy, which was my main goal of 2019, because in 2018 I read a lot of books that I didn't like and I probably knew I wouldn't like them, but I just read them because I thought I was missing out, whatever. And so in 2019 I did aim to read books that I thought I would enjoy rather than books I wouldn't enjoy. And obviously it brought up my rating, so 3.7 seems like a solid rating. My highest rated book that I read was Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman, which is the correct book because there is nothing purer and more wonderful than the Heartstopper graphic novel series. If you haven't read it, read it. It's available all online for free, or you can buy, where are they? The beautiful, there they are, the beautiful graphic novels. Also, I have reorganised my bookshelf. It's looking cute. Maybe I'll do a bookshelf tour at some point. Can't stand up, so would have to get some help. We'll see. Let me know if you want one. In 2018, I only read 44,000 pages, so 67,000 pages seems like a big step up. My most common star rating was 4 stars, which is nice. That's a good star rating to have. There are very few 1-star books, quite a few 2-star books. The ones that aren't rated are either non-fiction books or like books I just didn't really know how to rate because I just didn't feel like I had, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I had a solid grasp on the book or whatever. And yeah, so my 4 and 3 stars were pretty popular, but I think I had more 5-star books than 3-star books, which is cool. So that's exciting. It was a pretty good year in terms of ratings, so that's exciting. You can also see the publication year. As you can see, most of them were written between 2000 and 2019. There was a few written in like the 60s and 70s. That was like mainly Paddington books, and Flowers for Algernon, A Wrinkle in Time was in 1962. I read Anne of Green Gables, The Secret Garden, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, The Time Machine, Little Women, A Christmas Carol, and Emma, which were all classics. So they were earlier. I didn't read that many classics. Turns out I thought I read more than that. But on to the pie charts, because I spent time making pie charts, so we're going to look at them. These, for the most part, are approximations because it's quite difficult on Goodreads, because I didn't use a spreadsheet to track my reading at this for like half of the year, because I hadn't started a booktube channel until June, I think it was. And so I have now started using a spreadsheet to track my reading for this year, so at the end of the year my stats will be much more advanced and detailed, but I just had to kind of guesstimate for these statistics because Goodreads is a bit iffy with like rereads, and like some books don't show up and it's like kind of annoying, but I did the best I could. These are like pretty accurate, mostly accurate, kind of accurate. So in terms of like age genre, I read 33 adult books, 35 middle grade books, which is quite a lot, but the large majority of them were rereads of like Rick Riordan's books, so like Percy Jackson, Magnus Chase, Trials of Apollo. I reread basically all of Rick Riordan's books this year because I made a video ranking every one of his books and how to read them. I'll leave that in the cards. It was an excuse to reread all of my favourite books, so you know, it was a great time. But that's what made up a significant amount of my middle grade numbers. I read 33 adult books, which is not too bad. I do want to try and read more adult books this year. I'm 20. I feel like I can branch out. I don't actively avoid adult books, but I don't necessarily go out of my way to read them. I mainly just read what sounds interesting, and pretty much all the adult books I read were either fantasy or like thrillers, but mainly fantasy. And I read 114 YA books, so that made up 63% of my reading, which doesn't surprise me because I do read predominantly YA because that's what I enjoy. I then tried my best to make a pie chart of genres I read, and it went interestingly. I split it into fantasy, historical fiction, contemporary romance, sci-fi, urban fantasy, so any fantasy that takes place in the real world and not in a made-up world, non-fiction, thrillers, dystopians, hard-hitting contemporaries, and miscellaneous. And my biggest category was contemporary romance, and that made up 20% of my reading in total, which is quite a lot, but I read a lot of contemporary romance, it turns out, and that and fantasy are my two favourite genres. I mean, if you combine fantasy and urban fantasy, that makes up like 50 books. So that would be the green 14% and the purple 16%, so that would be 30% of my total reading. So fantasy is my biggest category overall. I just felt like splitting them up into fantasy and urban fantasy, so that includes things like the Mortal Instruments, the Raven Boys, like all that kind of stuff that's like fantasy but like takes place in the real world, like the Diviners, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I counted as. Sci-fi I did actually read quite a bit of. I read 19 sci-fi books, which I was quite pleased with because I didn't think I read that many sci-fi books last year, even though I love sci-fi, and I want to make it a resolution of this year to read more sci-fi books. But I was pleased that I read 19. That's quite a lot of sci-fi books, so that was good. Historical fiction I only discovered in like September, October, and it was my new passion, so I read 9 historical fiction books in like the last few months of the year, so that was pretty good. I'm pleased with that, and I've definitely got plans to read a lot more this year because I found a real love for historical fiction. I read 3 non-fiction, should probably read more non-fiction, and 9 thrillers, which is not that many, but I particularly like thrillers. I have yet to find a thriller I really love. Let me know down below some of your best thriller recommendations, because I'm struggling with the thriller genre at the moment. It's really testing my patience. Like recently, you'll see in my January wrap up, but I buddy read The Woman in the Window with Jamie from Leo Reed, and we both hated it with a burning passion. I gave it 1 star. I hated it. So if you want to restore my faith in thrillers, please let me know down below some actual good ones. I read 3 dystopians, 18 hard-hitting contemporaries. That's definitely after like fantasy and contemporary. Like, I didn't want to put contemporary romance and hard-hitting contemporary together because they're very different things, and I didn't think they belonged in the same category, but I do love hard-hitting contemporary. And the misc section is mainly like classics, like children's books that I read for like videos or for whatever reason, or just things that like retelling that I just couldn't be bothered to make their own category for because there wasn't enough of them. So yeah, miscellaneous made up 12% of my reading. Can you tell I got lazy at the end? So yeah, that's my kind of genre section. Then this is a look at how many books I've read in each month. I read 8 books in January, only 6 books in February. I did have the flu in February, so that's why I was horrifically ill in February, so that's why I'm surprised I even read 6 books, to be honest. 13 books in March, 9 books in April. Don't know what I was doing in April. I was slacking in April. not that 9 isn't a good amount, but for me it's like quite a bit less than I usually read. 18 in May, 13 in June, 24 in July. August 7, had surgery in August, so that's why I only read 7. September I read 14, October 20, November 20 and December 25. So it was a pretty up and down year, my lowest being 6 books, but for the most part I'm pretty happy with how many books I read in each month. Like when I read lower, it was generally because I had reasons to read lower, or I just read like way longer books. Like in January I read quite a few like big books, so I think that's why I read less. But yeah, I'm pleased with my general reading. This is a graph of the genders I read from in 2019. As you can see, I do not read from a lot of male authors, which I think is kind of surprising, seeing as fantasy and sci-fi are quite big passions of mine and make up quite a big bit of my reading. I thought it would be more males, and also taking into account that pretty much half of these are just Rick Riordan. Like I just counted like all the male authors more than once. Like if I read more than one book from them, I just counted them to make up 182. So yeah, like half of them are Rick Riordan, so I really did not read from many men in 2019. I read 136 books from females, which makes a lot of sense. I tend to choose women's books over men's just because there's quite a lot of sexism, especially in fantasy written by men. I've definitely had some bad experiences with those, so yeah, I definitely, if I can choose a fantasy written by a woman over a man, then I tend to choose that fantasy book. And I read from 3 non-binary authors. As far as I know, there might have been more, but like from what I know who is like out on Twitter. So yeah, I do want to try and read from some more non-binary authors this year. I just kind of want to, you know, make sure I'm getting in those non-binary authors, so that's good. I mean, you can just see I read from women predominantly. And then this is a table of my ratings. So as you can see, I gave 43 5 stars, which is a lot actually. I'm really pleased with that. I'm glad I read so many great books. Some of these were like 4.5 stars, but like I rounded up. And I read 59 4 stars, 38 3 stars, which I thought I read predominantly 3 stars last year, but no, so that was fun to find out. I was glad I didn't read too many middle of the road books. I read 18 2 stars, 5 1 stars, that's good going for me. I think that's like the least 1-star books I've read in a year, and 19 were not rated. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. That's a lot of 4 and 5-star books, so that's really exciting to know I read a lot of quality content. And then this is just how many new books I read versus how many rereads I read. I do a lot of rereading just because, one, I like to listen to books I've already read at night. I have really bad insomnia, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks at night, and I prefer to listen to books I've already read and like have an attachment to. And also just when I'm sad, I just reread books all the time. And I did do like 2 full rereads of the Diviner series last year alone, so you know, I'm a fan of rereading, and I read 148 new books, so I was happy with that. I thought I might have reread more than that, and I was not going to be that impressed if I reread more than that. But those are all the statistics for 2019. Sorry this is a bit of a mess. I'm a bit tired and all over the place, but I hope you got some insight into my reading in 2019. I hope you enjoyed my graphs. Very exciting, and you can look forward to my 2020 reading statistics, where I will have used a spreadsheet for the whole year. I'm feeling very organised and very on it. Like, I'm feeling real like confident with my spreadsheet. I feel, is it bad that I feel cool for having a spreadsheet? I'm weird. But yeah, let me know down below if you found any of your statistics for 2019 interesting, what your average rating was. I always find that the most interesting, because some people might think like 3.7 is really low and some people might think that's really high, and like it's just, I think, the most interesting statistic. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. Excuse this curl for doing nothing. What is it doing? Get back. That one, I'm just gonna chop that one off at this rate. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. Sorry there's some kitchen noise, apparently people can't keep it down in this house. And I will see you in my next video, which will probably be my January wrap up. Haven't decided. But yes, I will see you in my next video. Bye!